All right, if you notice in your SickBikeParts directions, step 3, number 11, is to install the lower chain adjustment bracket. But since I'm hoping still to go out and do a pre-motor snow ride once we get some snow, I'm not going to do that, because once that's on, you pretty much have to complete the entire rest, the entire engine and shift kit installation. There's no reason to, if I put that on now, it's not going to be secure because it attaches to the rest of the shift kit and motor and stuff. So what I'm doing is I'm skipping around a little bit and I'll do other things that I can do ahead of time, like attaching this shift kit housing to the motor and seeing how it fits on the motor and stuff. So I'm going to do some other things like installing these plates, these spacer plates and stuff, and we've got these bearings here that need to be installed. I'm really hoping to get a pretty decent deep snow, at least 2 or 3 inches, and let some air out of the tires and go for a winter ride. One thing I noticed when I started to put this plate on to this painted bracket, I'd painted mine, and you get a little bit of paint in there. I took this is like 80 grit sandpaper, and I just wrapped it around an Allen wrench. I just very lightly turned it. I also have a deburring tool, which I used on this. It's not really necessary. Don't freak out if you don't have a deburring tool, but I just used it just to clean up the edges. They were pretty good, actually. Pretty much a little bit of overkill there. This just needs to be flat. Just make sure it's smooth. Okay, but I did notice as I was feeding these bolts in through this spacer, which it just drops through that, but when passing through this part, it was tighter. It's loosened up a bit now. You see it's pushing through now easily. It didn't do that at first. I had to thread it through. So if you paint yours, here, like this one, if I put some pressure on here, it's not really going anywhere. There we go. Now with a turn, it went in. So if you painted yours, you might have to thread it through. As you're threading it a little bit, just give a little bit of pressure and it should push in. So regarding this first plate, that's going to go on here. These 2 holes and this hole are going to line up with these 2 holes and this slotted tab. Now, my motor has 8mm mounting bolts. The SickBikeParts kit is designed for 6mm mounting bolts. So I am going to have to modify these 2 holes and these 2 holes. They need to be made bigger. This could go horribly wrong. It would be nice if I had a drill press, blah, 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 but I don't. Let's see what happens. This may grab and go flying. I should probably use my the right angle thing. I'm going to stop short for just a second. Just see what happens here. Okay, so that's still not big enough, and we're most of the way through though. This is my kitchen slash garage. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Okay, so that broke through. And I know that's not big enough. Just pushing down, the other way, up, down. Just kind of north, south, east, west. It's going from the other side just to... Oops. All right, took my time, just did a little bit at a time. I may have to, depending on how that fits, I may have to make it a little, add a little length one way or the other, but I just took it easy. I didn't take too much off. A little bit at a time, 6 or 7 times, just make it a little bit bigger each time. First, I'm just going straight down to make sure that the bit will fit. Then to go slow. There we go. Then once I got clearance, I'm using this carbide bit. It's one that has cutting edge on the tip as well as the sides. It's like a very barrel-shaped, out of this little kit that I bought online. Okay, so if you have this same kit, just use this barrel-shaped one. It seems to work pretty well. It's not tapered, it's completely straight, you know, it's more like an end mill. So you're cutting, as you go down, you're cutting, and you're also cutting the sides. All right, so that works pretty good. don't think I'm there yet, but I'll check. Oh yeah, getting there. Let's go in from the other side. And this part is steel, not aluminum. Get some of this. Okay, we want to go up over here a little bit more. Okay, not too bad. It cuts really well. This actually cuts better on this steel than it did on the aluminum. Now we'll take the smaller hex head bolts, and they're going to go through this aluminum plate. Remember, this wants to be lined up. These two holes here, this one hole there. And then on the other side, these are lock nuts. You can tell because there's like plastic inside. And these should be about 10 millimeter. So these will only turn down so far, and then the plastic starts to engage the threads. So I have a socket driver on one side. Okay, so here's how I would recommend that you do this now. Hindsight being 20/20 and all. If you have a motor with 8 millimeter mounting studs, you're going to need to open these up. If you don't have to do this. Take this aluminum plate. I'm using this barrel-shaped carbide bit that has cutting edge on this tip and the sides. Whatever you use to make this hole, if you use a drill bit, whatever you do, here's what I would suggest how you do this, rather than how I did it. First, cut the holes in the aluminum. Go in from off of this. You know, this will be in your hand, right? I've already assembled this here, but you're going to take this part and enlarge it. And I would suggest that once you break through, you open it up from both sides a little at a time. As soon as you get this, as soon as this is opened up to the right size, put it on here. Don't open up this piece on its own because they're not really going to line up right. We can see the aluminum here. They're not lined up. If you look from this side, you'll be able to see the steel painted mount. the bolt goes through each of these things when they're separated, but not when they're on together. So I think the best way is to open this up so your bolt passes through, put it on here, and then use these holes as a guideline to open up the metal. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to try, I want to try and make sure that I'm not cutting into this aluminum, and as much as possible just cutting into the mounting bracket itself. Yeah, and that is, there's not much there, so it's really wanting to bounce. Let's try this again. I'm going to try and move over to this side as much as possible, to the left side, see if I can break through and then cut sideways. There's a little bit sticking out here, and every time I try to drill down through it, it's throwing the bit around. There we go. Much higher speed, that worked better. Okay, we need more. We need more kind of this way. Whoa. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a machine shop, huh? Or at least a garage with some other proper tools. I got to get a little bit more off the bottom. It's sending that bolt in on an angle. All right, so that wiggles a little bit. This one might need a little bit off the bottom as well, just in case. Really don't want to take off more than I have to. There we go. A little bit of up and down. A little bit back and forth. That should do. We'll check it later. And that's it. The other thing that has to be done is these holes here need to be made a little bit bigger for these exhaust clamps. Not bicycle, not the motorized exhaust, but these are automotive exhaust clamps. This type of U-bolt here, because I have the heavy-duty kit, I got these bigger bolts. So that needs to be opened up there, and I need to open up the other one at the bottom. So I'll do that, and then this will be, that's all I'll need to do. That's all the modifications I'll need to do on this mount. These will not need very much. It's almost the right size, it seems. Try to protect this paint from getting completely destroyed. Boom. Not very much at all. Tiny bit more. Right? Better safe than sorry, right? Better it take 6 attempts and you get it right than try and rush it and mess it up. So you can see there's 2 sets of holes here. That's these that are closer together are the ones I want to open up just a little bit. I mean, it's not really going to hurt very much if it's a little bit oversized. Actually, I should check and see that I can get them both in. Yeah, see, I actually need a little bit more on this one, a little bit more clearance this way to get both ends in. All right, but we don't need to watch all of this, right? You get the idea. You might have to come back in with this U-bolt and just see what you get. While this will go through both holes, this one's a little tight. When you try to put them both in at once, there's a little bit of a clearance issue. So I'm going to take a little bit off from the inside of each hole, especially this one. Okay, so that time I'm just trying to make it a little bit of an oblong. I may actually want to have a little bit of play like this. And you'll know by putting both bolts in, right? So start with one bolt, make sure you have the right diameter, then try and put them both in. As you see, I can't get them both in because this is a little bit squeezed together more than it maybe should be. And that's enough right there. I'm not even going to be going in that far. Okay, we got one more thing to do here, and that is installing these bearings. Now, these bearings need to be installed with this slot here on the outside of both of these. Now, I've already sanded this one according to the directions in the SickBikeParts PDF. This needs to go in snug, but by hand. All right, so you don't, if you have to hammer these in, it's too tight. All right, I've already done this one. It's actually a little too loose to my liking, but it's very difficult to get this exactly right. So what I did was, I first tried to do this entirely by hand and I was getting nowhere. I took a very worn Dremel disc sander here. I think this is 80 grit, which is not what I would ever want to use on this. But it's very worn, and I have this on the lowest speed possible. And what I'm doing is just as lightly as I can I mean, if there was any more grit on there, I wouldn't even have done that 3 times. The first time I did it, I just went around once. All right, and I'm looking for this to feel like it's going to start going in. Again, better safe than sorry. Better to do this 10 times and not take off too much than trying to save half a minute and now you got it too loose. And mine is painted, so that helps. Like I can see already, there's no paint coming off there at all. But I'd rather take the time and just see how it's fitting, how much force I need. Like there's a lot of force there and it's not going anywhere. It's kind of difficult to maintain even pressure as you're going around a circle like this. See, now I'm just starting to see some paint come off. So I probably have a long way to go, but I would rather do it cautiously. You got to press down hard and it's not going anywhere, you're not there yet. Now we're starting to go in. It's a little crooked though. Nope. Yeah, see, that's too tight because I can barely get that out. Feels like the top is going in before the bottom. Let's make sure that's not how I'm holding on to it. Yeah. So I might hit this bottom like twice before I go around a circle. All right, I like the way that one fits a lot better than the other one. Took a little bit of doing there. This one I feel like I took maybe just a little bit too much off. Maybe not too much, but I like how that one required a little bit of force. This side seems to require less force. So that kind of pops right in. But, you know, you're going to run a, there's going to be a bar that runs in here, and then washers, and then your two sprockets. So even though this is a little bit looser than I'd like, I don't think that it's going to be a big deal. And that's it for that. Okay, very quickly, let's just summarize all the steps here. Number one, if your motor has 6mm mounting bolts or studs, you do not need to resize these holes. They are the proper size. If you have 8mm mounting studs, you need to open up this hole on this aluminum plate, these two holes, and the same two holes on the steel housing. You don't have to alter these holes at all. These two bolts hold this plate on here. What I would suggest you do is first, before you attach this to this, open up these holes big enough that you can get the bolts through, and maybe even just a little bit of wiggle room. Then attach that to this. Now, if you want to paint this, here's what I would say you do. When you attach this plate to this housing before you paint it, don't use your nylon lock washers. If I'm not mistaken, these really aren't supposed to be taken off and used again. I'm sure you could get away with it, but what I would say is find some other nuts that'll fit this bolt and tighten them down with those nuts, keeping your nylon lock washers aside. Then, with this on, you'll drill back through these holes to open up the matching holes on this mount. All right, the way I did it is I opened them up both separately, and then when I put this on, they didn't line up exactly. So I've taken off material here that I didn't need to remove. Not a big deal, but I think the smarter thing is to open these, put them on this housing, use those holes as a guide to open that. Then, if you're going to paint it, and you can take these nuts off, take this off, and now this is ready to paint. Then you can come back and assemble it. That's the way I would have done it had I known exactly the process I was going to go through here. I didn't. This is my first time doing this. Because now my paint is kind of all messed up in different places, nicks and scratches from working on a painted part. It would have been much better to paint it at the very end. Okay, and then these go in. If you paint it, you're gonna, whether you paint it or not, you're probably gonna have to sand those holes on this mount. Check it first. Right? Check these first to see how they go in. They're supposed to go in snug, but by hand. You don't want to be smacking these things in with a hammer. If they're not going in by hand, they're going in crooked, you got to take a little bit more material off. Be careful, you don't want to take off too much. As I said, I used a very worn, look at this thing. Even where the sandpaper is still on here, it's pretty much used up. This is almost worthless. It worked out pretty good for the job I needed it to do. And that's as far as we're going to go with this part for now. See you next time.